Let's talk a little bit about poll bias and why everything you see in the media in regards to the polling currently in the Canadian election is not exactly what it may appear to be. If you look at the CBC polling, you can see that the Liberal Party, they have favored to win this election by quite a few points. I think it's like between 7 and 10 points, which is insane. The amount of people that I speak to on a daily basis, and everybody that I speak to, at least like 98% of them are super against the Liberal Party in this coming election. So why is it that these polls that are being shown on CBC are suggesting that the Liberal Party is favored to win this? Let's dive into this. Election poll bias refers to systematic errors or inaccuracies that can affect the results of polling data during an election. First, we need to understand poll methodology and where poll bias can happen. Sample method, sample size, weighting, wording, and margin of error. We're not going to touch too much on margin of error because it's not really relevant in this particular poll, being that most things are done systematically and data never lies, in other words, right? Sample method, which is essentially how this data is being collected. So we have three main avenues for how this data is collected. One being telephone, two is interactive voice responses, and the third one being the internet. So telephone with live operators conducting interviews with randomly dialed correspondents, right? Then you have your interactive voice response, which is essentially like, they call your phone and, do you think Pierre Poilievre is a menace to society? Click 1 for yes, click 2 for no, that sort of thing. Then you have the internet, which is essentially just like a panel that's recruited in various different ways, right? So same kind of thing, polling, but done via the internet. Which brings us to sample size, which is essentially the sample size of these sample methods that are being collected. So total surveyed refers to all who completed the full survey, unweighted responses, people who answered a specific question. Then we have weighted responses, adjusted value of those answers to reflect Canada's actual demographics. And just in case you weren't able to tell by previous videos of mine or the fact that I have cheat sheets in my hands, I am by no means an academic. However, that brings us over to weighting. Based on census date for age, gender, and region. 60 and over were overrepresented, and historically thinking, 60 and over is kind of that demographic that kind of leans liberal, like throughout the whole country. Then you have Quebec, Alberta, and BC that were all underrepresented, which again, if you think about now Alberta, which is widely thought to be a majority blue province, we're now underrepresented. And then when you look at Atlantic Canada, which was again, majority liberal provinces rather, we're all overrepresented. And this is where you start to see bias taking effect on some of these preliminary polls, which lastly brings us over to wording. Now, again, wording is something so simple, but depending on how something is worded is kind of how the public is going to take it, right? So example, Pierre Poilievre is an extremist that puts Canadians at risk. Option B, Pierre Poilievre would submit to Trump. Mark Carney is the best person to work with Donald Trump, or none of the above, or not sure. It's like a psychological game here because again, most people, especially people that don't care all that much or are already in those demographics that lean towards liberal, are going to say, well, it's either going to be Pierre Poilievre as an extremist or he's not fit to deal with Trump. Click, click. And this is where, again, poll bias happens, right? So if you're looking at Alberta that is being underweighted, so not many people are taking these surveys and polls, are not even being offered to these people to take these surveys and polls. And then you're looking at like Atlantic Canada, who's again historically kind of been liberal leaning for many, many, many decades, and they're being overrepresented, which is also kind of concerning because now let's say, they ask 500 people in Alberta who they already kind of know are liberal leaning, being that they're between that age demographic of 60 and older, they're already kind of manipulating their answers that they want to get, and in turn, what data they're going to receive. And same goes for now Atlantic Canada. So a majority liberal provinces rather, and they're probably asking again that age demographic. So like you're essentially manipulating these pre-polls kind of thing, the data that we're all privy to. So now which brings the question as to why. And I think it's exactly that, manipulation to discourage young people to get out there and vote. And I know historically we have a huge percentage of this country that does not vote. That age demographic from like 20 to 30, like most of those people don't vote, which is what I think is going to be really interesting, is that I think we're going to see record breaking numbers of historical non-voters taking to those polls and voting for Pierre Poilievre. I believe it. So don't be discouraged by these polls if you are, and don't be happy about these polls just yet if you are. And again, I'm not shaking my finger at anybody. This is This is a democracy. You have the right to vote for whoever you would like to vote for, whatever you see best fit, as do we. But I don't want people to be discouraged or feeling manipulated by these preliminary polls, because they are not accurate. It's not accurate data. And you've seen it even in the U.S. election with Kalama Harris and Donald Trump, right? It showed her initially at one point like blowing Donald Trump out of the water, and then come the election, it was a landslide. So I think that's exactly what we're going to see here in Canada, and frankly, I hope so. So hopefully you learned something from this. Again, I'm not an academic, but this is the data that I have, and I wanted to put it in front of you guys to make your own opinions. But don't be discouraged. Go to those polls. Make sure you vote. I won't tell you who to vote for, but at least make an informed decision. Anyways, I appreciate watching this video, and we'll catch you on the next one. And if you're like me, a proud conservative, and you want to pick yourself up a really stylish hat, you can hop over to our mudmonkeystore.com. That's our web shop. We have all kinds of cool stuff there, including this one-off fringe minority hat. So if you'd like, go pick one of those up as well. Again, appreciate you watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.